Hi all, this is Maria Clark at Sweet Willow Designs and welcome to my studio. Today we're going to work on this fun melamine plate, this plaid plate. I have been doing a series of projects on different kinds of backgrounds. If you looked at the Christmas tree video, you saw that I did it on a glass frame. I've done projects on mugs. So I'm really working on showing you projects using different kinds of backgrounds than just a standard canvas. I love working on a canvas, but I also like to introduce some different colors and textures and patterns. So we're going to actually dot on a patterned background, and we will be using my standard dotting tools. These are the Crystallite crochet hooks, and I'll give you references for the sizes of tool that I'll be using as we go through. I'm also going to be using the Brophy screwdriver set to get a little bit of a seed type dot. Now, if you don't have that, just use regular dots. I think it would be perfectly fine. But here's a look at the screwdriver set, and I'll tell you the references as we go into that. And then I'm also going to be using a chalk marker. I tried several different tools to get the grid marks on these plates, and the chalk marker worked the best. So I'm going to go ahead and use that. I wish I could find one in a finer point, but this is the one I could find with the finest tip. So we'll go ahead and see how that works for us. I'm also going to be using the DecoArt gloss enamels, and I'll be using True Red and White. So this is really simple pattern with only 2 colors. And we'll use those because we want the shine. These are melamine plates, so we're not going to be able to cure them. And here's what the plates look like. I just picked these up at Walmart actually, and I just love these plaids. So I'm going to save that red plate for a different project that I'll share with you all. So we're going to use this kind of tartan plaid here. I am going to clean it up with some alcohol just to make sure that it's nice and clean, and get my stencil. I'm using the chalk marker as I mentioned. So I just need to line up, you got to shake up that marker and pump it and prime it before you can use it. And then I'm going to line my stencil up on the plate so I can find the center and get my marks on. I'm going to change the orientation because I want that main stripe of that plaid to be up and down, oriented up and down. So here I am, I'm just going to go ahead and place these grid marks. Now, I just love plaid. I went to a parochial school, and I wore a plaid uniform and a white blouse, and ever since I've had an affinity for plaid. I also have an affinity for Peter Pan collar. So any of you who know what a Peter Pan collar is, leave me a message, leave me a comment in the comment section, and I'll do a drawing of everyone who submits an answer on Peter Pan collar to win or to have a giveaway for one of my patterns, digital patterns. This is the 2019 Christmas Dotting Festival series, and it's 6 great projects, so I hope you like them. So leave me a comment and tell me what a Peter Pan collar is, and I will go ahead and draw from all of the submissions. All right, so I've got my primary dot in the center, and I used my P16 11.5 millimeter hook. And then I'm just using a smaller nail dotter to put my dots around, and I'll end up with 16 dots on my first round. And then I'll go in between those dots with my second round. And just finish up that round. Now I'm going to move out to my largest nail dotter, and this pattern is all going to be in the round. So I'll use my largest nail dotter, and I will get my round placed, and I'll use my grid marks to help me get the spacing right. And I'm actually going to be doing a zigzag pattern. I'm going kind of for a knit look here. It kind of to me looks both like a sweater knit, but also like a crochet pattern, like a crochet doily. So whichever one you want to associate with would be great. But we'll go ahead and get this row. And we'll have a circle all the way around. I really like having the grid marks on from the stencil so that I can have the best chance of getting an evenly spaced round. I hate it when it bunches up at the end. So this gives me a better chance of getting a nice smooth line. And just finish up my last few here. And then I'm going to start with that zigzag pattern. Now, if you saw the coffee mug tutorial that I did with the sweater pattern, it's the same one, except we're doing it in a round, so it's going to give us a little bit different look. So to start this, I'll be going above and below the line. So I'll start below the line, and it's just a little triad of 3 dots in those little valleys. So below the line and then above the line. And as I do that around, it's going to give me a really cool kind of star shape, which I really liked. So we'll go ahead and get that all the way around. I'm going to go a little bit slow on this round because I really want you to see this pattern. As we move out, we're going to adapt the pattern just a little bit, but you get a sense of what the rhythm is and how it comes together. So just continue all the way around, below and then above the line. I really do like working on patterned backgrounds, so I'm really excited to see how this turns out in the end with the plaid. Okay, and we'll finish up the last one here. And you can kind of get a look at that sort of star shape. I think that's neat. It's a little hard to see maybe with all the grid marks on, but it's really a nice effect, so I'm really enjoying that. Okay, now I'm going to move down in size for my nail daughter. I'm going to use a smaller one. And I'm going to place another round on this line. And again, just spacing it out. I'm not actually counting, but the pattern is actually in sets of 3. So if you wanted to kind of plot it out a little bit better, you could sort of do that calculation to determine how many dots you need around. I did a rough calculation, and it doesn't necessarily always come out completely accurate, but the pattern is such that it's not really that noticeable. All right, so instead of going above and below the line, I'm actually going to just be above the line. And I'm going to do the 3 dots, skip a dot, skip a space, and then do another dot. And this is why I say that, maybe it's a crochet pattern and maybe it's a sweater pattern, knit sweater pattern, because this actually, if those of you that have crocheted, this looks like a picot edge to me. And I really love that. So I'm going all the way around and just kind of finishing up those last few. kind of figuring out if I have enough, if I've done my calculation correctly. Okay, that completes that round, and we're going to do the exact same thing on the next several rounds. So as I look at this plate, I actually want quite a bit of the plaid to show at the edges. So I'm going to go ahead and do another round. I'm using the same size tool, and the only difference is I'm going to change the number of dots because, of course, the circle is larger, so I can add more dots to get this row. And I'll do that same thing, go all the way around, just kind of counting to see how many I need. Again, I wasn't always perfect in my counting, but the pattern turned out beautifully anyway. And just finish it up. And the exact same thing to do that little triad of dots. So the triad, skip a space, and then again the triad. And again, each row is going to have more than each subsequent row as we move out in the pattern is going to have more of these little picots. Now I'm going to finish it out. I'm going to decide here that I'm going to pull this pattern out a little bit more, but I'm only going to do just a couple more rows, I think. I was thinking I'd go out further, but I really want to see more of that pattern. I did use water on a cotton pad to wipe off all of that chalk marks from the grids, and it worked great. And now I'm using the True Red, and these are the only two colors, white and red, on this background. I didn't want to get too busy with the colors. And I'm just testing out my tool here. So I'll end up using the L11 8mm. And I'm going to place a dot of True Red in those little spaces from that star shape. And isn't that pretty? That red is just so vibrant. And fill that in. That fills the space in nicely. Use the size of tool that will work for the space that you have. And we'll do that, finish that up. Now I'm going to be using my G6 4mm and the red, and I'm going to go in between each one of those little triads there and place a dot. And I'll use that same exact pattern on each of these rows. Now I used the G6 4mm for the first two rounds. I am going to move up in size because I have a little bit of space as I moved out to these last two rows. So I'll be using the H8 5mm for the next two rows. Okay, and here's our final round. Same size tool. This is the H8 5mm. And I'll go all the way around. And I will place a dot in the center. That's the only top dotting that I'm going to do. And here's how our pattern is looking so far. I love the fact that we left that edge there. Now I do have another couple of design elements that I want to add. I love the simplicity of this. I like that it looks like a, kind of starting to look like a knit sweater. I'm going to sort of close up some of the space. I'm going to put, using my largest nail dotter, just kind of put another little, drop a little bit of dot there to fill in that space and kind of unify it with those outside rings. Okay, looking good. Now I am going to start to add some elements here with the screwdriver set, and you can of course add or not as you wish, but I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit more on the inside where that star shape is, and then on the very outside edge. So I will use the 6mm screwdriver. These are all marked. And I'm going to make sort of like a little, almost like a little floral element, a little spray here. So I'll use it to put the center seed shape, and I'll do that all the way around. Clean up a little stray paint there. And then I'm using the 5mm, and I'm going to angle these shapes. Let's see how nicely that kind of fills in that space. I really like the way this looks. But again, if you don't have access to a screwdriver set like this or something similar, you can experiment with different tools to make shapes like this, or just consider putting in some kind of dots. That would look nice too. Okay. That's how that's looking. Now I'm going to move to that outside edge, and I'm going to do the same kind of thing. I'm just going to use smaller size tools. And I'll start with the center one is the 4mm. I would normally do that center dot all the way around just so I don't have to change up my tools, but I want to show you how that works, how this piece is going to look, this design element. Now I'm going to move down to my 3mm, which is the smallest screwdriver in this set that I have. And I'll have a link for that below if you want to consider that. Oops, I had one I didn't like. Let me get that one down again. Okay. Again, this is 3mm, so it's pretty small. And just angle those seed dots. And it's going to give me a nice little edge. The pattern is so simple. I didn't want to add a lot to it, but I did want to add something. All right, so I've completed the edge. Now it needs still a little bit more. So I'm going to go in with a nail dotter, and I'm going to drop a little dot in between to kind of unify those outside, the little design elements. So I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit there just to kind of bring it together. And then I have one other thing that I want to do on the center, but let's do the outside first. So I'm just using the same size nail dotter that I did my little triad series there, the base row. And I'm going to go ahead and just see how I'm just kind of dropping a dot right in between. And that's just going to give it a little bit more shape and kind of bring it together with the rows, previous rows. And I'll do that all the way around. Now the last thing I'm going to do is, as I looked at this, I thought it needed a little bit more red on these little elements in the center. So I'm going to cover up the white using my largest nail dotter, and I just have to spread the paint around a little bit. I'm going to cover up those dots with some red, and I actually think that looks really nice. I think that does bring it together a little bit better. Okay, that's the last bit of dotting that I have to do on this particular project. So let's go out and take a look at this. See how simple that is? It's just really simple, but I love the way it looks on that plaid plate. And as I mentioned, I've got several of these plates, so I'm going to go do another pattern in an upcoming video. And then we'll move on to some different surfaces. So there we go. And here's the finished piece on a stand. I hope you enjoyed this pattern. As always, thanks so much for joining me in my studio. I really appreciate you. Thanks so much. I can love it if you'd subscribe or leave me a comment, give me a thumbs up. I really do appreciate it. Thanks everyone for joining me in my studio today. Take care.